So, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this Workforce Wednesday webinar. My name is Kirsten Bayer with the Illinois Center for Specialized Professional Support at Illinois State University. Thank you for joining us this afternoon. Today, we're going to be discussing invisible disabilities in the workplace, navigating challenges, and cultivating opportunities. Again, my name is Kirsten Bayer. I'm the Assistant Director of Communications here at ICSPS. If you need a certificate of participation after today's webinar, you can feel free to reach out to me directly via my email, and I'm happy to provide that for you. I'm also joined by Sarah Goldhammer, who is the director of the Southern Illinois Professional Development Center at Southern Illinois University Edwardsville. She will be facilitating today's panel discussion with our two panelists. So we're excited to welcome them. Really briefly, some housekeeping items. We are in Zoom webinar instead of Zoom meeting, so it's a little bit different in terms of platform capabilities. You as an attendee do not have the ability to unmute yourself or turn on your video. So we ask that you direct any questions or comments in the chat or the Q&A. Both should be open to you right now, so feel free to do that. Today's webinar is being recorded and will be posted on the Illinois Workforce Academy website within about 48 business hours. The recording will be posted, but we'll get the slides from today and the resources that we have at the end of the webinar posted right away. And you will receive a follow-up email tomorrow that will have that URL link directly in the follow-up email, as well as a follow-up survey. Both Kathy and Andy actually sit on our WIOA Professional Development Committee that helps to generate all of the webinars that you see on our Workforce Wednesday webinar series all year long. And we do use the feedback from those surveys to help us generate new topics and also to help us evaluate that we are meeting the system where you all are at and providing professional development on the topics that you would like to see and the topics that you feel you need. So with that, I'm going to start off with our beginning polls that we do just for analytical purposes, but also just to help our panelists today kind of see where you all are located at and which partner you best represent. So we'll do the location poll first. Where's your local area? If you could answer that, that would be great for us. Okay. A couple more seconds and I'll end it. In that poll and share the results. Looks like we have a good span of people from Chicago and Northern Illinois, as well as Central Illinois, and one person who's statewide. So thank you for joining us. And then which title do you best represent today? I'll launch that poll here. So if you best represent Title 1, 2, 3, or 4, or an other WIOA partner and stakeholder or state or local workforce innovation board member, please go ahead and post that in the poll. And while you all are answering that, if you have any technical difficulties or logistical questions regarding today's webinar, feel free to reach out to me directly via the chat or to Sarah, and we are happy to assist you in navigating any of those questions and get you the answers that you need. Couple more seconds. All right, looks like most people are joining from Title 1 and a good chunk of people from another WIOA partner or stakeholder. So thank you for taking those polls really quickly. We appreciate it. I'm going to hand it off to our two panelists to briefly introduce themselves before we get started with a beginning icebreaker.
Well, thank you, Kirsten, and thank you all for your attendance today. And I hope we have I know we're going to have an engaging discussion. We have Sarah at the helm, so thank you, Sarah, for your time as well. My name is Andy. I have the honor and privilege of being the Chief of Staff for the Division of Rehabilitation Services at the Department of Human Services. I work directly underneath Director Renee Patrick, and I have, again, the privilege and honor of helping to lead a division of 1,600 plus employees with a varied service set and a varied mission. So open to questions and ready to have a good chat. I'll turn it over to my good friend Kathy.
Thank you. I am so honored to be here today to share the topic and perspectives of the work that we do. My name is Kathy Olson Tracy, and I currently serve the state as the State Director for Adult Education, Title II. This is a topic that is very dear and near to me, as you'll hear and learn about as we work through our conversation together, and learn how we can support our individuals who struggle with indivisible disabilities. So thank you.
Right. This is Andy, and I will take back the mic and just wanted to start with a brief little exercise this afternoon. Um, Celebrities with hidden disabilities. We'll start with Kathleen Turner, star of stage and screen. I know her best as from her role as Chandler Bing's mom on Friends. So if that dates me at all, it shouldn't. It's still in reruns. My 8-year-old daughter likes to watch Friends. Um, but Kathleen Turner suffers or has rheumatoid arthritis, which can be very mild, can be very severe. It is a spectrum, but something that she has had to navigate throughout her career. Montel Williams with multiple sclerosis. Again, it's a spectrum affliction. It could impair or impede numerous functions of the body. And they can vary greatly from person to person. Also in the multiple sclerosis category, we have another star, Christina Applegate, for Married with Children, and probably the greatest movie of all time, Anchorman, um, is also has MS. Lady Gaga, um, of all people, megastar, just a celebrity of celebrities, has fibromyalgia, which again can be mild to severe, but still something that has to be navigated. Still something when the symptoms persist or arrive, it has to be managed, and that can affect employment. That can affect productivity. Also with fibromyalgia, it is Morgan Freeman, but I thought that was too much celebrity for today. So Selena Gomez has lupus. For those that are unaware, it is an autoimmune deficiency that um, can affect multiple organs. It can affect a single organ. I mean, it can just be all over the place. Ms. Gomez has also had a transplant, but we'll address that with another celebrity. And there are many people I work with that have lupus, and each one of them have varied symptoms and not necessarily require, some require, but others request or ask for certain accommodations that are extremely easy to meet. Joe Jonas, and I hope I got the right Jonas. I'm not a Jonas Brothers person, and there's like 40 of them, I think, or three of them. I'm not sure. So I think this is Joe Jonas. Don't judge me if it's not. But Joe Jonas has type 1 diabetes, which is that a hidden disability? Is that just a medical condition? Well, it's something that needs to be compensated for in the workplace. And so that's something that was chosen to include because the complications, the symptoms, the effects, um, can impact someone's ability to do their best at work.
I can confirm to you, Andy, this is in fact Joe Jonas.
I should have checked with you first, but I knew I could count on you. Um, I mean, sports superstar Venus Williams has a hidden disability, Sjogren's syndrome, which for an athlete, this is an incredible hidden disability that affects the exocrine glands, leads to dry eyes, dry mouth, can lead to issues with perspiration. It affects, organs, and yet Miss Williams is and has been at the top of her game. Um, so to work through a hidden disability and compete at that level is absolutely amazing. Our probably a um, I wanted to introduce so Aubrey Plaza, probably the most famous for her role as the acerbic and sarcastic admin assistant from Parks and Recreation. Has also moved on to the big screen. Suffers from anxiety and depression. Um, this is one of the more common hidden disabilities, particularly in the workplace. Look no further than the headlines to see numbers of how many people take some sort of anxiety or depression medication. Those can have all kinds of side effects. They can have ripple effects throughout someone's life. And sometimes this hidden disability can be episodic and difficult to manage. And so, reasonable accommodations, to assist employees is becoming more increasingly appropriate because this hidden disability isn't going away. Now, this one I did not know. This was news to me. And I got it from a few different sources. So, I mean, you can trust it about as much as anything you can on the internet. But Halle Berry, ultimate, A-list celebrity, um, just, a list of career awards and achievements, only hears out of one ear due to a traumatic brain injury caused from domestic violence, sadly. Um, so for somebody to act in action movies and in the roles that she has held, having to compensate for hearing for monaural hearing loss, I think that's just incredible. And I think stands just as high as some of the gold statues she likely has in her home. Howie Mandel, right? We've all heard about the OCD, not confirmed, but he has confirmed that he is colorblind. And color vision deficiency can be a very sneaky hidden disability. A lot of people don't want to disclose it, particularly men who are most affected. Don't want to admit that they have an issue with their vision, particularly red-green color blindness, which is the most common. And it could lead to various challenges. I have several examples where in my career I've put my proverbial foot in my mouth over charts and graphs and had to go back. And we're going to end this on George Lopez, stage comedian, comic artist, star of the small screen and a couple of big screen roles, has had an organ transplant, along with many other celebrities. Um, Organ transplants, again, are a complete spectrum and can affect people differently, not only physically and medically, with various drugs that may be required or therapeutics, but also psychological and emotional challenges. I mean, you've had something taken from you or added to you, or maybe both, and that can be a very tough mental situation for someone to sort through. And it also opens them up to increased health risks, particularly with infection and rejection. So thank you all for indulging me with celebrities. I just wanted to try and set a base for us, and I will hand it over to Dr. Olson Tracy.
Well, thank you. We were looking at, as preparing this, to kind of set the stage of looking at how prevalent disabilities are and how diverse they are. So that showcase of famous people also explores the age ranges, ethnicity differences, and even income, because disabilities hit us all. So when we're looking at how many people in this country um, have a diagnosed disability, and I stress the word diagnosed because there are so many with undiagnosed disabilities as well, but the documentation on that is very hard to pinpoint. But what we do know is that 70 million adults in our country report having a disability. That's 1 in 4. So I think that that is so prevalent as we look at how we interact with our colleagues, our peers, our community members. And if you want to look at even drill down farther, we do annual research at the Illinois Community College Board. It's called our Index of Need, and it is a data-driven, highly researched data point. And we know that in the last year for fiscal year 24, we saw 1,446,855 adults with disabilities in Illinois. And I'm going to tell you, as we work through what I struggle with, I had to practice that number about 2 or 3 times before I could get on this webinar and say that out loud, because as we talk about dyscalculia, you'll see how numbers are very complicated for me. So as we talk about what this looks like, out of 25 people, or out of 1 in 4, 25%, it is powerful. And don't quote those numbers, and we'll talk about my struggle with numbers in a minute, but these are accurate.
All right. So, Andy and Kathy, thanks for starting us off with some information. And I am very honored to be here today with Kathy and Andy. And I have had the pleasure of working with Kathy closely for quite some time, and Andy on a number of projects and committees. So one thing that I can assure everybody that's attending today, that you are going to get a lot of great information. You're going to get some resources, and you're going to get some real authentic stories from two fabulous people. So both Kathy and Andy have shared with you a little bit about who they are professionally, but I really appreciate that they are graciously also offering to share with us today a little bit about their own invisible disability and how it impacts their daily life and their work life. So Kathy, do you want to start us off and tell us a little bit? You already alluded to a little bit. There was a little bit of a spoiler alert there. So,
yeah, thank you. I struggle with dyslexia, dyscalculia, dysgraphia. I was diagnosed in the mid 1980s. So my story begins as a freshman in high school. And I remember, and I can to this day. So if I was diagnosed in college in the early 1980s, you can see how long ago it was when I was in high school. So it was a lot of time before we really talked about learning disabilities, before things like that happened. And I'll never forget a teacher holding up a math test, freshman in high school, with all kinds of red marks. It was a big glaring F on this test. And he was saying publicly that he'd never seen anybody do as poorly on a math exam. Was I even paying attention in class? Did I even do anything to prepare for this test? How could somebody be that bad on a test? It was coordinate grids. Working on my doctorate, the class that almost kept me out of finishing my doctorate was statistics and scatter plots. That trajectory has stayed with me for my entire academic life. I had an English teacher who would organize us in classes after exams by, if you're the highest grade, you're first in the row, first seat, and then moving all the way back to the lowest test. I was often in the back of the class. What I had was an amazing family and amazing support system that many of our families don't have. Many of our clients and customers may or may not have that same support system. I failed out of college. I could not keep up with the reading. I could not understand it. And the class that put me over the edge was a chemistry class, because I could not make sense out of the periodic table. And I was, because I had somebody who stepped up and said, I think I know what's happening here. And we did some testing, and I was diagnosed with dyslexia among the big picture there. And it really kind of changed the trajectory of how I felt about myself, how I perceived education as an opportunity, and how I perceived career growth, because I was no longer that person who said, oh, I just don't understand anything, I'm not that smart. It was like, oh, I can achieve something, I just have to do it differently. But that took me a few years between the diagnosis and the acceptance of how I perceive information and the willingness to move forward. But I've struggled all of my academic and professional life in various ways, and it kind of bubbles up unexpectedly sometimes when I'm working through projects. We'll talk about that later. But that is one of the biggest struggles that I've ever had. working within this space and trying to move forward progressively in my career and my personal life when these things just keep bubbling up. So that's kind of my story. Andy, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Kathy, and mostly thank you for sharing. I think that helps, frame in a very significant subset of hidden disabilities. As for myself, I have the paper cut of disabilities compared to many of our customers. We don't get the opportunity to work with people usually on their best days, and so sometimes I'm sheepish to talk about it. But given this is about hidden disabilities, and it is something that I do my best to accommodate myself, I can't help but wonder how many others are out there that are doing the same. So about 8, 9 years ago, I was diagnosed with Eagle syndrome, which is where the styloid process in your neck turns to bone. Thankfully, I don't have the pain that's usually associated with it, but I do have significant tinnitus, which is ringing in the ears, which can not only be distracting, but also in certain types of rooms. There's a reason I don't shop at Costco or Sam's Club, because the air handlers in there, there's something about the pressure just really, so in, manufacturing and retail and logistics environments, somebody with this condition could also be struggling. Um, and oftentimes I've had questions on why I usually sit in this, certain part of the room or a certain part of the table, so I can hear better. I don't need a reasonable accommodation, from my employer per se, but I need to reasonably accommodate myself and look for opportunities where I can ensure that I can hear. Because along with the tinnitus, I do have monaural hearing loss associated either with the Eagle syndrome, but I will freely admit that I did play in some of the worst punk bands in the Southwest United States as a younger man. I won't say when. Um, so, yeah, that's a bit about me. Fortunately, I'm able to, do my own workarounds, use headphones, table seating. Usually can help me help myself.
Okay, thank you to you both. Thank you for sharing thoroughly kind of what you have and what your workarounds are. But it does, I think one of the things that really impacted me is for both of you, it's something that doesn't go away. It's there all the time. It's something that you need to work through and work around. So Andy, I'm wondering if you would continue then and tell us a little bit about how you navigate situation where others may not believe your limitations are real due to they can't see it, it's invisible. So how do you work through that?
It took me a while, to be forthcoming, and honestly I thank my current employer for that. I've worked in VR before in the state of Wyoming, but working with a team, alongside people with multiple, types of disabilities, has helped me be more open. I now advocate if there's a certain chair, not by demanding, of course, but by simply asking like, hey, I really can't hear out of my right ear. Can I, this will help me. And I have not been told no, by anyone. I think once you explain the situation, and your why, I think, most people want to help and want to accommodate.
Thank you. And what about you, Kathy?
So I spent a lifetime, what appeared to be a lifetime of youth and early adulthood, um, self-accommodating for disability I didn't even understand or didn't really know that I had, by trying to be that nice and helpful person. I always thought if I were nice and helpful, people would ignore the fact that I just couldn't quite grasp the information in front of me. It took a while to kind of balance that out. So I've learned over the second half of my adulthood that it's not up to me to explain to somebody else what my disability is, that I don't owe somebody an explanation for how I perceive information or how that perception is complicated, or that I need to pause and look at something multiple times before I get it right. I feel that if somebody doesn't believe that I have a disability, it's not up to me to force them into believing me. Um, and I've learned that that's not my struggle. My struggle is just to do the job that I can do to the best of my ability. Um, I'm fortunate because I'm surrounded by people in my workplace that understand and provide me the grace that allows me to succeed. But I don't feel like I have to argue with anybody that my disability is as valid as anything else and convince them that they have to look at me differently. So I do think that I expect a level of kindness and acceptance from my colleagues. I expect to give that back in return. Um, but I don't worry if somebody doesn't believe I have a disability or disbelieves it. It's not their approval that I'm, so it's a little bit of a different lens. It took me a long time to get there, by the way.
Yeah, I can imagine. And Kathy, you may have already answered this question, but let me put it out there for both of you. And if there's anything additionally you want to share, is what message would you like to share with people who may not fully understand what it means to live with an invisible disability?
I would say that a disability impacts every part of your life, personal, professional. It touches you in various ways. So when we talk about giving people grace, when we talk about understanding the broader spectrum, that the beginning discussion about the various disabilities individuals had, when we looked at that to begin with, and we looked at organ donors, and I thought, wait, that's a disability. Okay. And then I immediately clicked, of course it is, because you need different medications, you need different maybe accommodations for health and wellness. You might need a broader understanding of what this looks like. So to not always tie to just the general acceptance, the general awareness that 1 in 4 people have a disability. So it's not something that we can say, I live my life here, and then I, at certain times, will accept an accommodation for somebody. To recognize that 1 in 4 of us is struggling in some capacity. So it's our job just to understand their condition, the human condition. By that mean is to understand that we all approach things differently, and to continue to give each other grace.
Well said, Kathy. I don't have anything to add. Thank you.
Agree, that was well said. Um, Andy, I'm wondering, do you have a personal experience of managing your invisible disability in the workplace and what challenges you faced? And maybe you kind of told us a little bit already about some workarounds, but is there anything else that you can share with us?
Not about me in particular, but as a manager of people, it's probably better to say a leader of people. It's definitely made me be more observant. I think it's helped with my emotional intelligence to monitor, my staff, to check in and not necessarily ask prying questions, but appropriate probing questions. And is, something we can help you with. Is there, I'm noticing this, are you okay? And that would be my encouragement to our attendees on screen here. Um, is if you think, something might be going on, just pay a little more attention and ask appropriate questions. I mean, we do operate in a rather litigious environment, and disabilities are a protected class. But if somebody chooses to self-identify, absolutely we should be doing everything that we can to assist them. So, Sarah, yeah, not for myself, but I think or not for my disability, but for myself, it's made me more aware.
Well, and I do love Andy. I'm sorry, Kathy. I didn't mean to, but I do love that asking questions in an authentic way of just like, hey, I'm here to try and figure out how to best help you. Love that. Okay. Kathy.
Just to reinforce what Andy was saying, in the chat, we have a comment that says we're not asking for accommodations to get out of something. Or we don't want to do something. We're asking for accommodations so that we can be successful in the task at hand and be able to do the work or have an independent life to the best of our ability. So I do want to call out that, when we're looking for accommodations, it's not a way to say, I don't want to do the work, or so I just acknowledge that, and I think it's an important comment to bring forward.
It's probably almost the exact opposite. We do want to do the work, find a way to be effective. So, Kathy, did you have anything else about a personal experience, or I know you've shared a few with us, or are we ready to move on?
A personal experience
Of
with
how of the personal challenges you faced in a workplace. Like I said, you've already shared a few. Do you have anything else that you want to share with us?
It'll go with the giving grace. So I work with large data sets. We are in a very data-driven environment. And as a part of Dyscalculia, I struggle with numbers. It is my reality. It's really complicated when you are trying to pull large data sets of information together to make a response to some timely information. And I spent several hours doing some work, putting together the data that I was asked to pull together. And I got an email response saying, hey, Kathy, these numbers are just a little off. I don't understand. We're missing about 8,000 people. Can you help me understand what happened? And I'm like, nope, let me look at it. And I was at the WIOA Summit, the Workforce Summit. And the night I was there, I spent probably a couple hours trying to unpack what happened. And it was a simple mistake. I had transposed numbers from one column to another. But it took me quite a while to figure out where those 8,000 students went. Like, what happened? Why do the numbers not make sense? Two things on that. When I was asked, or three things. When I was asked to do this work, I was given lead time to pull it together. It was reviewed by somebody who there's some kind of flaw. What are we thinking? And there was time to reconcile the error before it went out the door. So it's a daily struggle in my job, but I have people around me who support that and say, okay, we're going to give you lead time and we're going to review. So I think when you talk about how this impacts your daily life, for me, it's an everyday thing in my job. But I have people around me who recognize the work and are willing to help. So those are kind of how that impacts my day-to-day work. I was up till about midnight at the Transitions Academy, looking at Excel spreadsheets, trying to figure out where my numbers went wrong. And then I found them and said, and I found my 8,000 people.
And that's the key, right? You found it, and
Yeah.
I mean, it took a little bit, but you were successful.
I transposed numbers in a column. That's all, it's just.
Right.
So, yeah.
Andy, let me switch back to you because again, you've already alluded to this a bit, but how can employers create a safe space for employees to disclose their invisible disabilities comfortably?
Well, I think we've all been through a hiring process at some point, and usually a question either in the application or in your new hire packet has this really short, do you have a disability question? It's very stark. It's not nuanced. It's not packaged in any way that really encourages people to be forthcoming. They don't want to lose out on a job opportunity because they might need a reasonable accommodation. They may not want to, share that information about their disability. So they may forego that. And that's not, that's something that I wish we could magic wand and change that across all industries, across all hiring sectors, but we can't. And so we have to look at it from our individual scopes of control. Um, and in my current position, a lot of the hiring is done, centrally in Illinois through central management services, and then it gets brought into the agencies. And so what our team does is we really try and be as welcoming as we can to all, to make it a safe space. Disability and disability access is frequently discussed because our leadership team and honestly our entire team within the Division of Rehabilitation Services, we have many staff that have some sort of disability. And so we try and make it a safe space. Now, for someone who's, I don't know, running a small print shop or a plumbing company, or a small business, those same principles can transfer. You can share during the hiring process about your accommodations, about employee needs and making sure that you're creating that safe space, not only in disability awareness, but in other places. I mean, it's so easy to stack on top of and pair with other things to really build a culture around acceptance in many ways.
Thank you. And Kathy, do you have anything to add? Andy gave us a great answer about employers making a safe space. Anything else that you can think of?
I think of inclusive language. I think inclusive language all the way around creates a space where it's not like, oh, today we're going to talk about disabilities and make sure this person is safe, but we're going to talk about inclusive language because we may have people who don't want to share their disability or to self-disclose it, and we may not know that they have a disability. And again, going back to undocumented disabilities, people may not have an understanding of what's really happening to themselves. Like, I didn't know that the way I saw and perceived information is not the way everybody else does. So um, I just didn't know. I thought everybody saw things the way I saw them. I thought that numbers didn't make sense for anybody. So I think that inclusive language matters. Inclusive language and inclusive ways we speak about disabilities in general. I think that is one of the biggest steps we can make. I'm a very strong proponent on people first language and using that as a part of how we approach discussing disabilities. Again, that inclusive language is very important to creating those safe spaces that Andy's talking about.
Okay, thank you both. And what are some reasonable accommodations that can be implemented to support employees with invisible disabilities? Kathy.
So I really lean into universal design as an architecture, universal design as the way you set up your offices. Universal design for learning is the way you approach classroom instruction and job training. As part of how we onboard people, universal design. So I lean into that framework often, and there'll be a resource at the end about universal design for learning, because I think that creates a framework for us to work within. So we know how to set up spaces, how to set up learning, how to set up training that is inclusive for students or clients, customers, employees, colleagues who are have a non-visible disability, who don't want to share their disability, or who are just living a life that is complicated as it is. So we can simply just make everything a little bit easier with that framework for everybody.
Thanks, Kathy. And you did just mention that we're going to have some resources. So let me reiterate that. And thank you to Angela for putting in the chat a potential resource. And we will have some others coming up. Andy, you want to add on to Kathy's response?
Well, I don't know if I can. I mean, that was pretty good. But I can share how I've made it worse for people. A true egg on my face moment in my professional career is leading a project team, and I spent a lot of time on some PowerPoint slides and get some numbers together. and really making these pretty pie charts and bar graphs, kind of a like a monochrome palette, just or really looks slick and cool. I probably should have kept a copy, only to find out that two of my primary audience were colorblind, and that when two of your decision makers can't see the difference between the pretty work you just did, um, it's it's embarrassing. I was definitely embarrassed. I felt a little bit of shame, but you know, mostly I reflect on it like, oh, okay, well, you know, I need to know my audience, and you're not always going to know if somebody has a hidden disability. But to Kathy's point about universal design, there are things where you can still have great looking presentations that are accessible, that have the alternative text put in for screen readers for those that are blind. You can texture your pie charts and bar graphs, not only with color, but then you can put patterns. So they're more easily discernible for those that have a hidden vision disability. Um, there's lots that you can do through universal design, and I applaud Dr. Olson Tracy for bringing that up. Um, so, I mean, yeah, I mean, I've made it worse, and then I've learned to be better at it. I'm still learning. I still have um, more faux pas regularly than I'd like to admit.
I do love that you're calling out continuing to learn because we're all continuing to learn. And we also have additional resources almost daily. It seems like something new comes out that can help us to be able to make our everything that we are creating and doing more accessible. Our next question actually is something that's been called out in the chat as well, that we need a campaign to erase the stigma around differently abled individuals. So what are some of the ways, and Andy, I'm going to throw this back to you. What are some of the ways to address potential stigma or disbelief associated with invisible disabilities in the workplace?
That's a great question. And it's a tough place to start because it's whether or not a disability has been disclosed can affect that. I mean, so it's much easier to pursue a reasonable accommodation if an individual has disclosed their disability. Large organizations such as my employer, the state of Illinois, we have policies, procedures, processes, forms. We have all kinds of good stuff, to fill out and get the process moving. Um, Nonprofits and small business aren't going to have necessarily that refined process, and that's okay. Um, they can still be accommodating. Um, I'm thinking I lost my place in there. One second. Um, Sorry. With the smaller employers, you can lean on your professional service organizations. You have additional resources. A lot of times they're subscription based, but SHRM puts out some quality content that can assist with some of the accessibility questions. Um, for the non-disclosed um, disabilities, that's a thin sheet of ice because you don't want to violate any laws or violate anyone's rights. Um, and so you may lean on universal design, which was mentioned before, as a way to, be more inclusive and be more accepting. Because I think it's to get back to the original question, it's that acceptance and building a culture around inclusivity that is going to help chip away that stigma. We can't legislate, stigma reduction. Um, we can't make people do it, but we can through exposure. And that's why I'm very proud of many of the programs currently available in the state of Illinois that are aligning with employers and with industry, to reduce barriers, which in turn are going to reduce those stigmas. I think uh, the client, the CEJA, the Climate and Economic Jobs Act, SWITSI, the Subminimum Wage to Competitive Integrated Employment, are just two of those statewide programs that are removing the barriers and therefore the stigma and getting disabled individuals into employment with everyone was.
Kathy, do you have anything to add about addressing potential stigma?
I think our colleagues, our clients, our customers, our bosses, our supervisors learn from our behavior too. So modeling acceptance and how we talk about disabilities in general, how we approach our colleagues and how we accept individuals with differences in their needs, that creates that culture. It comes from modeling. It comes from how we talk to one another, how we talk about disabilities in general, how we talk about building accommodations into our systems. If we prioritize that as a part of how we approach our jobs and model that, that becomes part of our culture, and that comes from us. So as you're working with your customers and your clients, thinking about to that point earlier of somebody saying we don't ask for accommodations to get out of work, I 1,000% support that statement. But it's how we talk about it as colleagues and how we create that space for each other to be successful. That's going to build and destigmatize. It's going to build inclusivity. It's going to build a culture, and it's going to destigmatize it because we're taking the stigma away. And we're doing that by how we model things and how we approach things.
Well said. Thank you. So let's move in now to some WIOA services that are available for individuals with invisible disabilities. Andy, can you share a few?
Absolutely. And thank you for the opportunity for free advertisement. Um, of course, I think the hallmark of disability employment is going to be the vocational rehabilitation program, which is now Title IV of the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. I mean, this program's been around for, gosh, I mean, it has its roots in post-Civil War in getting veterans, injured veterans, job ready. And of course, it morphed, and now the veterans piece is still there through the VA, but we also have vocational rehabilitation, which is most easily summed up for those that are unaware, as it helps disabled people get a job, keep a job, or get a better job. And so if there is, something that's going to help an individual maintain their employment, VR is definitely a resource, but the person would have to, sign up for those services. And an employer, of course, cannot require that. But employers large and small also need to understand that the most recent figure we have as far as the average cost to accommodate a disability in the workplace is right around $100. If you are running a call center and your top customer service rep or your top salesperson is just knocking it out of the park and comes to you and tells you, "Hey, I can make 5 more sales a day if I had a different computer mouse." Well,
Mhm.
most managers are going to, spend the $50 to get the computer mouse. And why not do that for someone who has a disability? Even if you don't have the paperwork on it. But if somebody's, got an issue with their hands, um, what's the harm in adding to your productivity and your bottom line through equipment that's more tailored to your employees? Recognize disability, or I'm sorry, disclose disability or not. Um, Outside of that, we have other community partners, and services and availability vary by county. So we always encourage those that are interested to contact their local DRS office. We'll do our best to either take you in or refer you. 211 is also a great resource, for information on what might be available in the area for both employers and for individuals. Um, yeah, it's still kind of a sticky situation unless somebody discloses. How do you know how to help them? Um, but
Mhm.
thank you. Good question.
Well, and thank you for all those answers. And Kathy, I'm thinking, have you got a few to add to that or?
Well, I do think I love everything we said and agree with it. It is so much easier for us to offer the accommodation and say, will this help you? But I also think what we've done in the past is I will offer reasonable accommodations to everybody, whether I know they have a disability or not. For example, a lot of webinars, we transitioned to a lot of webinars. So I emailed my team and said, we're going to be, when the pandemic hit, we went all virtual. And I emailed my team and said, okay, a lot of webinar meetings are going to happen. Do you need headphones? Is that going to be able to help you participate in meetings? That's an accommodation for somebody who may have a hearing impairment, but it's offered to everybody because you might have somebody who struggles with focus and the earphones are going to help them focus better. So it's a simple thing that we can offer to everybody and not call out a specific disability, but include everybody in saying, will this help you? We can do that with so many things of just offering, does this work for everybody? Now, I'm not separating because there are accommodations that we need to offer somebody who has disclosed a disability, and we certainly need to pay attention to their needs uniquely as an individual. But sometimes a broader approach can help for those individuals who choose not to disclose a disability and who may not know that what they're struggling with is a disability. So offering it to everybody, hey, these computer mouse are really great to navigate around that. How many of us in our staff could benefit from this? And then we're broadening and serving people who, again, may or may not know that they have a disability and choose not to disclose. So I think, again, that's a culture of inclusion.
Fantastic. And I do want to call out because people who might be listening to this recording on another day, one of the comments in the chat was understanding is the biggest accommodation that this person asked for. So I think that just really validates everything the two of you have just said. So I want to call that out. And modeling also has been pointed out as a great strategy. And speaking of strategies, we're kind of coming to the end here, but I want to make sure that we address everything we possibly can. Are there any additional practical strategies that either of you want to call out supporting employees with invisible disabilities through either accommodations or resources, anything that you haven't already shared? Either one of you. You've been pretty thorough so far, so I don't know if that is repetitive or if there's anything that just popped into your head that you want to share.
I don't know that it's repetitive. I don't think that it's strategy, in the small scope of my control. It is just to, I guess, re-hit on some previous points. I mean, they work. It's, looking at universal design and looking at accessibility. Your documents. Are they easy to read? Are they able to be, made accessible for those that may have a vision impairment? Um, but then again, looking at other accommodations that may be formal reasonable accommodations, but still the employee, the individual is not manifesting any outward sign. And so that's when the rumors start and the the falsehoods, right? And so I think it comes back to, creating that inclusive culture, that and acknowledging that, yes, so and so obviously has a disability because they have a wheelchair. Well, also, so does the person who's dealing, with chronic pain and fibromyalgia and physical and mental issues that accompany that. So I think it aligns with what's in the chat. It aligns with what Dr. Olson Tracy said. Um, you know, Universal design and culture can really take you a long way, and those are both based in continuous improvement. So the work is never done, thankfully, right? We're always circling back and reviewing and moving forward
Right.
and more forward.
Thanks, Andy. Kathy, anything else that you want to share?
No, I think, well, no, and then I was going to continue. So I guess, yes, there is something. I appreciate you guys being here. One of the questions we thought about asking is something more aligns of like our responsibility in sharing our story so that people can learn how to support. And I would say that as we go into the resources, it's our responsibility to learn together to support individuals across our system. So the resources we're going to see are there for your ability to use and grow and learn and advocate and support individuals with disabilities. So I'm excited to show them everything that we've pulled together.
Great. Yes. And we have just a couple others. And again, let me know if you feel like you've already talked about this, the WIOA services. Andy, you gave us quite a long list about that. Anything else to serve individuals, specifically training for employment? Is there anything else that you can think of that you could point out for us?
Well, I think attending the workforce Wednesday webinars is a good first step. So we got, 45 people or so that are living right. So thank you all. But beyond that, I think I see that Nisa put in a link to Jan. I think there's some great resources online. I think you'll find Jan. I'll ask Jan on our resource slide. Um, but I think it's reaching out. We all know somebody who's working in a similar organization. What are they doing? Right? There's nothing wrong with a little bit of groupthink. Um, there's nothing wrong with stealing good ideas if they're going to work for you. And I believe I need to scroll up in the chat here, but somebody mentioned tailoring language. That was Nisa again. So thank you, Nisa. Tailoring language. One of the biggest projects I have under my professional belt was redoing the forms for unemployment insurance in Wyoming, and making sure that they could be read at a fourth grade level. Not necessarily, that could be disability related. NISA makes mention of, difference in language for autism. Yeah, I mean, what are your peer organizations doing, or what are your granting agencies requiring, or what are some connections they can help you make to other organizations that are having success in that area?
Thanks, Andy. I love plugging the Workforce Wednesday webinars. That's awesome. And these are all recorded. And one of my colleagues, Tara Schwab, has been putting a few things in the chat that are coming up that are open to everybody. And we are going to share a slide in just a second with some more options for you for additional resources. Kathy, but before we move on, is there anything else you want to share about WIOA services to serve people with individuals with disabilities, specifically for training? Is there anything, or have you already shared all of that?
I think I've already shared all of that.
Okay. Okay. So, Kirsten, why don't you bring up our slide for the resources? And then if there's anything the two of you want to share before we talk about those resources, specifically about building the culture of empathy and awareness. And I will say again, there's been a lot of information in the chat about the importance of building that culture. Is there any final words you want to give us to inspire us as we move forward? Kathy? Nothing like being called upon for words of inspiration. That's no pressure there.
I just, I want to say that when you have the empathy, the compassion, the inclusion, you can take a college dropout all the way up to a doctorate with a role of being a state director for Title II. So the power that you have in your support for each other can take somebody farther than they ever thought they could get.
Love that. Well said.
Yeah, and I'm supposed to be inspirational after that. Oh, great.
Really no pressure for you, Andy.
Well, I'm looking at the attendees, and I know we've had a few drop. They probably had at 2 o'clock. But I see a lot of just fantastic people that have joined us today. People that I know on a first name basis. And these are doers. These are people that can take this information and add it to their already vast pool of knowledge, and start making things happen within their scope. Um, so I don't know that I have anything inspirational, but I think I am inspired. Just looking at the names of some people that took time out of their day to join us today. So thank you all. Greatly appreciated. Not only this, but um, I definitely appreciate what you do every day. And Renee Cabreras, I have not forgotten you. I will send you that invite. So thank you all.
And we say thank you to the two of you for taking your time to share information, to inspire us, to help us think deeply about what we all can do. So let's take just a minute and run through this resource list. And each of us can tell a little bit about some of the resources that we've added here.
Yeah, Kathy, do you want to talk about the workforce GPS playlist resource?
So the Workforce GPS playlist is a list of PDFs. I think there's some webinars in there of working with individuals with disabilities within our workforce system. So it's very relevant to some of the work we do. I recognize that many of us work outside of the workforce system as we serve individuals and clients, but it's a nice playlist of resources, building partnerships, ensuring technology access. And there is work in there about universal design for learning, but it also talks about physical access and things like that. So it's a wonderful resource, a list of resources.
Great. Yes. And then I'm going to briefly touch on the job accommodation network. I think we had somebody put that in the chat. This is a great website. We've actually had a Workforce Wednesday webinar on it, which we've hyperlinked that as well. And we had the presenter go over exactly how to use Jan and ask Jan any of your questions so that the website can help navigate you. And I'll pass it off to Andy to talk about the IDHS website.
Sorry, you caught me typing in the chat, Kirsten. So I was responding to Michelle again. She shared a little bit about her perspective from being a former teacher and having disabilities followed throughout the life of the customer. And that longitudinal data piece is one that, if you ever want me to soapbox, I guess I am now, just bring that up. Because in order to provide meaningful service throughout a person's life, we definitely need to have longitudinal data. And unfortunately, there's just so many data owners and they don't always want to talk to each other. So that is something that I know we've made strides in. I know that there's an 11-state Western consortium that's now sharing information because they have a lot of commuters. But yeah, that's a home point for me, Michelle. So thank you for bringing that up because that is something. Those are walls we definitely need to tear down. But back to the question at hand. Thank you. Yes, the IDHS website is full of resources and it is getting better by the week as we make updates. As we look at how we can better meet our customers where they're at. You'll notice that I did just link the main page here because the services go beyond just my home division of rehabilitation services. There are wraparound opportunities here as well. So I didn't want to zoom in too far, wanted to provide everything that I could, but also to encourage people to re-explore the DHS website. It's being condensed, revamped, modified, and updated. So we have a great work group internally that's working through it. So please use it and use the included contact links for feedback. Thank you.
Go back. I'm toggling here. The next resource is me. So I have linked our Universal Design for Learning series at ICSPS. If you know anything about our center, we are a center at ISU and we do professional development for a multitude of projects. We did this series for ICCB, the Illinois Community College Board, and this is a whole video series on universal design for learning, just explaining what it is, how to use it, how to implement it, and universal design for learning in higher ed. So we have all these video series, and then we have a whole slew of resources, past webinars that we've done, slides, presenters, handouts, you name it, we've got it, we've done it. So all the way back to 2016, we've been doing universal design for learning and things on special populations. So definitely check out our website as well.
Then I think the last couple I get to promote, and my center provides professional development for adult education. So we do a lot of things in partnership with ICSPS that Kirsten was just talking about, including those videos. And Tara Schwab put in the chat a little bit ago a CTAE, and that's Career Technical Adult Education Universal Design for Learning SIG, a special interest group. So if any of you want to know more, we would love to have you come and join us. As I said, that's something that we do in partnership with ICSPS. Also, we have on June 17th, we'd love to have you join us. It's Serving Students with Disabilities. It's a Q&A. Jennifer Montag, who is the speaker for that, is the Associate Director for the National Center for College Students with Disabilities. And she is taking like situation scenarios suggested from individuals saying, hey, this is what I have going on. Give me some ideas of how I can support this students. So whether you are in education or not, we encourage you to come and join us, because I really do think there'll be some overlap with what other people are doing. Jennifer also shared a session with us a couple months ago, and that is also linked. It's Supporting Student Success, Serving Students with Disabilities webinar, where she gave an overview for us. And so those are all some resources, and we'd love to have you join us, continue this conversation, because I think that's one of the things that we heard in the chat also is talking and learning and growing and thinking deeply about what each person needs to support themselves, and in whether that's in work, in education, or in daily life. So Kirsten, do you want to take us home for this webinar?
Yeah. Any other questions for Kathy or Andy? Please feel free to type those in the chat. We do have plenty of time for any other questions or like question or comments or scenarios that you would like to run by them, get their input and their feedback. So feel free to type those in the chat or the Q&A, and Sarah and I will help facilitate those. And then I just want to reiterate that this webinar was recorded. We will have the recording posted on our Illinois Workforce Academy website. And then you will receive a follow-up email tomorrow. It will be coming from Zoom. It's an automatic email that I set up, and it will have the URL link to the website in it, as well as a follow-up survey. I do ask that you allow me 48 working business hours to get the recording posted in case I need to edit it in any capability. However, the slides will all get those posted right away following today's webinar. And then the follow-up survey that will also be in that email for you tomorrow. I've gone ahead and put that in the chat because I know for me, I'm not going to take a follow-up survey on something unless it's directly after the PD or whatever it is that I'm taking the survey on. So I went ahead and put that in the chat. And then I'll also put the website in the chat too, if you want to just bookmark it, but it will be in that follow-up email for you tomorrow as well. But that's where you can find the recording and all of our Workforce Wednesday webinar recordings all the way back to, I think, 2017. So we've been doing Workforce Wednesday webinars for even pre-pandemic. We were on the webinar train. And I think that's all I have. Oh, if you want a certificate of participation, you can also feel free to email me. I had my email up on the beginning slides, but I went ahead and put it in the chat again as well. I think that's it. Any other last minute questions or comments? Anything else you'd like to say, Kathy or Andy? All right.
Good.
Oh, thank you guys so much for your time. Kathy and Andy, we really appreciate you preparing for this webinar, giving us your time, and adding so much value to this topic for the system. And we appreciate everyone who's joined us today. We'll go ahead and end today's webinar. Thank you for joining.